Bob, do we have a quorum?
Let me check just a minute.
The only
Okay.
one we're missing is Delegate Fisher, correct?
Okay, let me see. So we have you, we have Delegate Adams. I see Delegate Charkudian. I don't see Delegate Fisher. We've got Delegate Pippi. We've got Delegate Fraser Hidalgo and Delegate Chi. We do indeed have quorum, sir.
Okay, let me welcome everybody. Today's March 9th. This is Public Utilities Subcommittee. We have several bills we want to take up. I know everybody has the agenda. The agenda is online, so we'll start with House Bill 62. Bob, do you want to go ahead and give the briefing?
Sure. House Bill 62 from Delegate Charkudian. This is the one that limits the authority of localities to regulate the utility designated pollinator areas and the practices that are allowed within those areas. The amendments are largely technical. They define integrated vegetation management, low growing plant community, and redefine what constitutes a native plant according to the Maryland Plant Atlas. What the vegetation management definition changes to be is employing no-mow methods, rotational mowing cycles, et cetera. It's a more, I would say, a more specific set of criteria than were in what it replaces. And then also as a definition of utility designated pollinator area. Then we also have utility designated areas being subject to an agreement with U.S. Fish and Wildlife and the Public Service Company, or the Public Service Company maintains and regularly tends the area by performing pollinator-friendly vegetation management, and changes its timing to be beginning of November through end of March, except in certain areas that are designated by the Maryland Geological Survey, where they can do things from October 1 through April 30. Everything else is pretty much technical and straightforward.
Move the amendment, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Oh, all right. The amendment has been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? On the bill as amended.
Move the bill as amended.
Second.
All right, the bill has been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? All right. Bob, do you call the roll in subcommittee or do you want me to do it?
You can, we're not actually, we don't publish the result. We simply have it as if there is opposition, then we note that. I can go down the roll if you'd like, though.
Does anybody oppose this bill?
Yes.
Delegate
Okay.
Adams and Delegate Pippi. So,
All right.
Okay,
And then just mark Fisher excused for everything.
right.
He opposes it too.
Well, we know that, but we'll give him a chance to do it on the floor live.
Right.
All
Okay.
right. Bill passes out of subcommittee. Next we go to House Bill 513.
House Bill 513 from Delegate Queen actually fixes a problem from a couple of years ago. The bill that passed, I think when it passed, it was under the sponsorship of Delegate Brooks, essentially providing prevailing wage for underground digging projects by investor-owned utilities, gas and electric types. That was done with the to be under the jurisdiction of PSC, with prevailing wage rates determined by the Department of Labor and Industry, Commissioner of Labor and Industry, sorry. What the bill does is to actually flesh that out further and say that in accordance with the appropriate sections of the Labor and Employment article, Department of Labor has to enforce these prevailing wage standards, and then uncodified language is added by the amendments that the Commissioner of Labor and Industry has to determine the initial prevailing wage rates by hand survey by October 1st of this year, and then starting in 24 and thereafter, determine an annual prevailing wage rate. And those prevailing wage rates take effect essentially a month after they're reported. And then also, if there were any possible civil penalties for not complying before the numbers are out there, those penalties are waived under the bill as amended.
Delegate Adams.
Council, is this the bill that related to these utility projects that connect with new construction? And there was some question as to whether or not the prevailing wage would extend to the private construction project, or is that a different bill?
The one where there was the earlier discussion this session dealt with a bill that would have removed the limitation on the distribution facility and transmission distribution facility projects under IIJA, where that only applied to the extent of federal funding. This is not that. This is a prior year's bill from about 2 years before that essentially applied prevailing wage in the state to underground projects of for distribution utilities.
Okay, but not to extend to any of the private projects like a development or building, et cetera. It's just for utility work.
This is underground utility work.
All right, thank
So,
you.
Do I have a motion on the amendment?
Move the amendment.
Second.
All right, motion was moved and properly seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, on the bill is amended.
Move the bill.
Second.
All right, bill's been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? All right, all those in opposition? Delegate Adams and
Aye.
Delegate Lippy?
Yep.
Figure it's just easier.
okay.
Okay, bill moves favorably. House Bill 630, Bob, did we get the amendments to this?
We got amendments late last night.
Are
I
you
can
okay? Do
try
you
to-
want me to hold it?
Honestly, I don't think there's probably too much. We could either bring it to the full committee or just, I assume we'll be meeting early next week.
All right, let's
Um,
just, we can make the decision later, but let's not tie up time. So we can either pull it out and go to full committee, or we can take it up next week when we meet. All right, House Bill 1103.
This is from Delegate Rosenberg, reliability standards for electric companies. There were no amendments. There were security concerns raised by the opponents of the bill by taking, because what the bill does is requires the PSC, the utilities to report to PSC and then publish the 10 worst performing feeder lines in each service territory and provide geographic information. There was a security concern in terms of
Yeah, I think just for everybody's knowledge here, I think that would be a significant national security risk if we did so. So,
Unfavorable.
Second.
all right, bill's been moved unfavorable and properly seconded. Anybody opposed to the unfavorable? Seeing none, bill fails. Next, we go to House Bill 323.
House Bill 323, this is the one that takes EUSP and makes it a uniform 200% of poverty for eligibility instead of 175 for those who are under 65, under 67, sorry, and then for those 67 or above, 200%. The other thing it does is to require the Office of Home Energy Programs, which is in Department of Human Services, automatically to enroll in any fuel and utility assistance program, any, and by amendment, household with an individual who meets the financial requirements for SNAP, TANF, SSI, or means tested VA benefits. This is something that we have referred to. The amendments also strike the automatic enrollment in SNAP of those who meet the SSI. So that's a different program that wasn't within our purview. We have referred this to appropriations because the fiscal note was somewhat concerning. I know Delegate Charkoudian has a documentation and has had long discussions with DHS OHEP and the incoming Secretary of DHS about the fact that this is actually more of a shift of monies rather than a new fiscal hit, but I would let her more properly describe that. As I said, we've referred it to appropriations for sign off.
Yeah, real quick, Delegate Adams, are you on the bill or can I move the amendment and then we have talk about this during discussion?
We can talk during discussion.
Okay, on the amendment, anybody move it?
Move the amendment. Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? All right, on the bill is amended.
Okay, so
Is there a motion?
I'll wait for a motion, then I'll have discussion.
Move the bill as amended.
Can I get a second? Hold on. Can I get a second?
Second. Second.
Okay, the bill's been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion, Delegate Adams?
Council, was there any opposition to this bill? And if there were, did the amendments resolve that, or is there still some question on that?
I don't recall any, I'll have to take a look at the record. I don't recall any particular opposition to the bill, but there was as I say, the concern with the fiscal note. Let me just double check, see what that was in testimony. Of course, my system is not
there's
letting
no-
me type.
There's
Yeah,
no-
I didn't, there wasn't any
Yeah.
opposition. So,
And just so you know, Delegate Adams, obviously, if you pulled up the fiscal note, you would see, I think it's like 28 or $30 million. I don't have it up in front of me at the moment, but there's no actual additional funds added to the pot. It's just essentially allowing people who do qualify for the program to access the funds that they rightfully should have the benefit for. But because there's a convoluted sign-up process, they've been historically secluded or prevented from getting the benefits that they deserve. And so the first part of the bill streamlines that and makes it easier so that when you sign up for a different program, it automatically enrolls you for this so that you capture the benefits that you're supposed to be entitled for, if that helps at all.
It does. Thank you.
Yep. Delegate Pippy?
So, Mr. Chair, in that line of thought process, so if they weren't signing up before, was the money being spent?
no.
Yeah, so the people who would qualify for the program, well, let's just say the people who could navigate the system, that was a little bit convoluted, they would get a disproportionate amount of benefits that frankly, they shouldn't have qualified for if everybody who was in the same exact economic status also got their benefits. And just for the record, I mean, Department of or DHS does support more people getting, and I'll just make up the numbers, $900 versus about a quarter of that getting $950 or whatever the percentage works out to be.
So I feel like wise Mr. Bob Smith answered my question. So my concern is that if they weren't getting the money before, whether they're entitled to it or not, there is a increased expense. Is that fair to say?
Can I give it a shot, Mr. Chair?
Hold on. I will let Delegate Charkoudian answer the question because it's not. Go ahead.
Like, let me give you an example. So like if, let's say I'm entitled to something from the state, $100, and I never claim it, I never go get it, I never spend that money, then the state didn't spend that money. But now if we automatically enroll people, get the money, then now we have a new expense. Is that fair to say? I mean, is that
No, that's not how it works. So basically, let's say you had two people that could get into a program, same exact status for $200. Each are entitled to $100. The first person is able to navigate the system most of the time because they have access to internet. They're able to access the program or the application to get it. So they get the full 200. We're not increasing the 200. In this instance, we're saying this other person who may have signed up for different benefits also qualifies. And so now both people split the 200, which they're both rightfully entitled to. Delegate Charkoudian, you want to jump in and
Yeah.
see if you can clarify that point?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the intention of energy assistance was always to pay a portion of the bill, not to be paying the entire bill. So it was envisioned to be between $500, $700. Back in 2020, everyone who got the energy assistance got about $500. In 2021, about $504. In 2022, $763. And in 2023, $939. And the reason that went up is because the portion of people who were eligible was going down. So it didn't go up because we budgeted more money because we wanted to spend more money. It went up because the portion of people who were supposed to get the benefit but didn't get the benefit was going down, was going up. Sorry, more people who were supposed to get it didn't get it. So the way it works is DHS has their budget, which in FY 2023 is 77 million. In FY 24, it goes up to 107 million. And in FY 25, it's 137 million. So they have their budget everyone applies, they divide up what they have by everyone who applies. So what their letter says, and we can get this letter to everybody, what their letter says is, you don't then, the fiscal note writers basically took, oh, if 30,000 people aren't getting it who should, and now they do, we'll multiply that by what everyone got last year. That's how we got 30 million. But what DHS is saying is that's not the way to calculate it. The way to calculate it is, how much do we have? 137 million. How many people do we think will apply with this? Another 30,000. So how much will everyone get? $889. So it's not that they're going to have, it's not that they're going to spend more money. It's that everyone's going to get $40,
Less.
$40 less. And that is the intention, was never to be paying everyone's entire bill. The intention was to make sure as many people as possible had help with their bill, which $889 comes closer to than than 1,000 or 939, which is where they've been at.
You got it, Delegate Pippi? You good?
I mean,
Same amount of money, just more people applying, less
Yeah,
money
and
to
keep in
get.
mind, from 2020, it's still up almost $400. It's almost doubled since 2020,
Yeah,
even adding these additional 30,000 people.
sure.
Go
Listen,
ahead.
you know, to me, it's pretty straightforward, right? So, if there's more money being spent, irregardless of why it's being spent or
There's
who it's being spent on or who it's being sent to, then more money is being spent. So, I mean,
No.
unless
So,
somebody's
No.
Delegate, just think of it as there's a pool. The pool is filled with water. We're not going to add any more water into the pool. More people are going to jump into the pool, but the water doesn't change.
Can I answer one more piece of that, Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
The reason the budget is going up is not because they're giving the money to more people. It's because more Reggie money is coming in. So what happens is every year they get 37 million from EUS, from the rate subsidy.
Ratepayer.
Ratepayer subsidy. And then whatever comes in from Reggie, whatever it is. And because Reggie money is going up, it's gone up each year. So what's happened is the amount of money to spread across has gone up each year. The number of people who can get access to that money has gone down each year. And so that's why the smaller number of people are getting more and more money, even though there's plenty of money to give everyone who's eligible a very sufficient amount. Without putting more money in the budget beyond what would already be coming in, because Reggie money is always getting dumped in there regardless of how many people are applying.
And just to
Here,
add on
just
to
to-
that, Delegate, is on the Reggie auctions, depending on the projections, we think that there's enough to pretty much hold everybody harmless for the most part. But the other part of it is Pennsylvania is discussing getting in, and if that happens, there's potential that the Reggie proceeds could possibly double. So it'll put even more money into that pot. Does that help you?
I mean, listen, I do appreciate you guys trying to explain it, and I apologize for my, inadequacy in understanding it. So why don't we do this? If we're going to move the bill, I'll just vote down just to be safe, and then I'll wait for a letter from DLS or DA, somebody to clarify that there's
Yeah, if I may,
Well,
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
Okay, if I may apologize, Delegate Drakudian had a very good explanation. My one-word answer needed more explanation, and she actually provided it much better than I did. Thank you.
Okay, the bill has been properly moved and seconded. So we had the discussion. Seeing no further discussion, we'll take a vote. All opposed?
Yeah.
Aye.
Okay, Delegate Adams and Delegate Pippi are opposed.
Yep.
Bill moves favorable.
Chairman, I'm just going to say this one thing
Yeah,
about
go
the
ahead.
bill.
Sorry.
I mean, there were substantial amendments and on this subject that I think is important. I'll review it and we can.
Okay.
Obviously, we're going to vote it in committee, and it'll give me more time to look at the amendments. But
Yeah, and if there's anything that we can do to help clarify for you, Delegate Adams, happy to come by and talk to you a little bit more about it. Make sure everybody's on the same page. Whether we agree or don't, that's fine. Just want to make sure everybody has the information. All right, House Bill 511, we're going to hold this. There's still significant discussion happening surrounding this bill. So we will go to House Bill 692.
House Bill 692, in your name, Mr. Chairman. We have a set of amendments here, 4 pages worth. Actually, this is the bill that puts limit, that essentially says if the Public Service Commission issues a CPCN for a local project, generation project or lead line project, that the locality has to process the local permits in a certain way. As the bill came in, it said that simply that they shall process within a reasonable time. And with your amendments, it does provide additional clarification that the county or municipality has the authority to process it, since part of the argument was they didn't have the authority to process. So this affirmatively gives them that authority, requires them to process those local permits under a CPCN within a reasonable time, and to the extent that the local laws are not preempted by state law, and that to process it in accordance with the local law, and that the county or municipality cannot condition approval based on receipt of for any aspect of the generating station, overhead transmission line, or qualified lead line, a conditional use, special exception, floating zone, or discretionary review or approval, or a finding that the project is consistent with or allowed by the comprehensive plan or zoning of the county or municipal corporation. And then finally, it adds in corresponding language. That's in 7207, which is the general CPCN statute. The following section 7208, it really does the same thing, but it's only for combined generator and lead line projects.
Move the amendments.
Second.
All right, the amendment has been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The amendment carries.
Move the bill as amended.
Second.
All right, the bill has been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Just real quick,
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, Dorchester County obviously was part and parcel to this issue. And my only observation to the subcommittee is that we hear bills, we heard some of them today, where we're trying to limit and or eliminate the CPCN process. That is a local engagement with citizens. And while, if I understand the bill correctly, there was some disgruntlement over how the county council went forward. I think it's important to just articulate that we can't, if you want to be polite about this to folks on the Eastern Shore, diminish their engagement and input on where and how these projects are located. Go ahead and take a vote from here. That's my comment on it.
Yeah, the only thing I would just say, Delegate, and I totally respect where you're coming from, and I know that your county is one of the ones impacted, or one of the counties that you represent, is that this actually respects the CPCN process, and the local authorities still have input during the CPCN process. And this is after the fact, after we've had a project approved, a local municipality coming through and saying, there's some other local zoning permit or regulation that they want to then bring up to try to circumvent that process. And this is really the crux of the bill and where it comes in at. But I understand what you're saying, and I know how your local jurisdiction will certainly feel about this, and I totally respect it. All right, seeing no further discussion, anyone opposed? Delegate Pippy, Delegate Adams.
Yep.
Everyone else is in favor. Bill moves favorably out of subcommittee with amendment. Next, we will go to House Bill 908.
House Bill 908 is the next stage, if you will, of the community solar project, which is currently a pilot program rather. It would say 3-year pilot program, which has been going on for at least 7, going on 8 years now. There are 2 sets of amendments propounded by Delegate Klippinger. The first one, the simpler one, 133-028, is language actually that comes from Stan Ward, the staffer down at the Ways and Means who deals with property taxes. And what it does, since there is a property tax exemption for community solar energy generating systems right now that is designed to expire with the statutory end of the pilot program, what it does is it essentially takes off the sunset for that if the program becomes permanent, and then makes some other essentially clarifying changes to the property tax provisions relating to the community solar program. The other set of amendments is a larger set of substantive changes and tweaks for the program. That is 873-924/1. And so what that does, rather than simply talk about agrivoltaics as a simultaneous use and area for both solar power generation and agriculture, it actually lists 9 different items that are specifically agrivoltaics, along with any other activity recognized by the Department of Agriculture as an agricultural activity. I can go into those, but I don't think you want me to. And then provide some additional clarification for the definition of community solar energy generating system. It says, with respect to one that is constructed under the program going forward, serves at least 40% of its kilowatt hour output to low and moderate income subscribers, unless it's wholly owned by a nonprofit. There's some additional technical changes. Again, the pilot program, it differentiates between the pilot program and the permanent program, and that's with a July 1, 2023 differentiating date. Additional amendments as we go through here. Okay.
I know we're reviewing these amendments and they're pretty substantial. Can you just make sure the delegates have them in their emails?
Okay, you want me to send it right now?
Yeah, if you don't mind. With that, as we're discussing, Delegate Chi?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just curious if NRG ever proposed some amendment because they said they want to.
Yeah,
I don't know
so
if
I
we
could
got
take
it.
that one. There have been a number of people who have come up today and want amendments. There's an opportunity to amend the bill in committee. And if we don't have those amendments, we will make sure we have them before we take the vote up in full committee. And happy to give those amendments their fair day in court, so to speak, once we get there. But I have not seen them, all just people telling me they want them. So I will make sure that we have a proper discussion when we get to full committee.
Okay, let me just get these amendments to you guys.
All right, Mr. Chair.
Yep, go ahead, Delegate Adams.
So one of the things, are we taking the Farm Bureau amendment related to agrivoltaics?
Yes,
that's part of this. That's part of this.
Yeah,
pile,
that is
yes.
part of the larger amendment, and we did take that.
All right, so the point I would say is that there seems to be a technical error on that's been raised to me, which is number 4, where it says raising livestock. For example, cattle, sheep, lamb, hog, or pigs. Sheep and lamb are one and the same, and
That's true.
They're asking to cut out the word lamb and replace it with goat.
I mean,
okay.
I'm cool with that. Does anybody oppose that?
Don't know the difference.
No.
But never
Barry
mind.
Glassman think. All right, yeah.
Guys, we are recording here.
We are, yes.
You can make fun of me at dinner if you wish.
No. Okay, yeah, I mean, no issue. Bob, can we just write that in when we vote on the amendment? Is that cool?
Absolutely. Let me take a quick look at that right here.
And my second question while you're doing that, we did not take their amendment number 2 request, which had to do with soils and different concerns with the quality of soils being located.
I don't believe we did.
We did not. Reading I have the amendment I just sent y'all. This is the raising livestock. It says, including cattle, sheep, lambs, goats, or pigs. So since lambs are sheep, you just want to strike lambs. Is that the case? And
then add goat.
Get goats there. It says cattle,
okay.
Sheep, lambs, goats, or pigs.
Strike lamb.
Strike lamb.
You want any other animal? We'll give it to you.
Okay, unless you want to add kids and calves and piglets, but Okay.
All right. Delegate, oh, sorry, my bad. You good, Delegate?
There's I got to sort out what you want to do here. Delegate Shi mentioned NRG with an amendment. Is it, Chair, your preference to bring the amendment, which I know exists, to the full committee, or would you prefer that we discuss it now?
No, let's bring it to the full committee. From my understanding, at least part of what I've heard is that it's not going to be a huge deal. We might not even need the amendment because it might just be codifying what we already do. But I think we'll just discuss those amendments in full committee.
Okay,
And
I think it's important for those folks that we have that amendment discussion. So.
Yep, and I can see many of them on the call. Please get them in, and maybe you already have. I just haven't checked my email in 4 hours. So.
Oh, I don't see them. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
the thing that I will note is that amendments to be offered in committee, as the chair said at the beginning of session, have to come through the amendment office process. We can't just take somebody's scribblings or the reprint that they do and send through the delegate. It has to come through the amendment office.
All right. You good, Delegate Adams? Okay.
Yeah,
Delegate
yes.
Charcudian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to add, this has been a bill that is very important to me, very important to my constituents. And so I have been following the conversations, and I think it's worth mentioning that while there were a lot of opinions and there was opposition in favor with amendments on this bill, it's my understanding that the sponsor and several of the advocates on it have worked really hard over the last several weeks to address issues that were raised by the utilities, raised by the Public Service Commission, raised by labor unions, raised by Farm Bureau. And so I think what we're looking at represents a really good faith effort on the part of a lot of people to address the vast majority of issues. So I think it's probably accurate that not everyone who opposed the bill loves it now, but I just want to acknowledge that, because I think there's been really good work done by folks who wanted to see this pass. And I think a lot of that, I'm just scanning the amendments now, I think a lot of that is reflected in that. So even as we're thinking about adding additional ones, I want to thank the folks who worked so hard on it.
Yep. And I can tell you I've had multiple conversations with the bill sponsor. I know that he has had many stakeholder meetings, and we've taken the bulk of the amendments or suggestions that have come in to his office. All right. Delegate Adams, did you have anything else, or are you good?
Well, the only thing I was going to add
Okay,
is
okay.
the Senate had amendments. Are we trying to conform to the Senate bill, or is that not the purpose of this particular?
I don't think that's the purpose, and I am not familiar with what they have done, but I will try to follow up with our counterparts in the Senate before this hits full committee.
All right. So if it's the will of the committee subcommittee to move the bill, I'll save the arguments that I think would come from the opponents and just save that for full committee.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
We got to move the amendment.
Mr. Chair, I will move the
Delegate
amendment in a
Charcudian.
second, but I just got word that the Senate amendments are identical. And with that, I'd like to move the amendments.
Okay.
Second.
All right, Bill, on the amendment, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, the amendment is adopted. On the bill as amended.
Move the bill as amended.
Second.
All right, the bill has been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Delegate Pippi and Adams.
Okay. For the purposes of discussion in full committee, I will take the two sets of amendments that we have, consolidate them so that they may be taken together and form a reprint of what the subcommittee has done.
Thanks. And Bob, I don't know if you have to drop them in somebody's name, but you can just do it in mine. That's fine.
I can do it in yours, or I can do it as chair ECM.
Okay.
I'll do it in
Yeah.
yours. I'll do it in yours. Okay.
Okay, whatever's easiest. All right, last one is House Bill 1099. I will be honest, this one's gonna be a little bit unusual. Bob, you can give it, go ahead and give the brief, but this is straight up a jump ball. So we can have the debate and vote.
Okay, this is the bill from Delegate Jacobs that he brought in some video from, I think it was a Kansas facility where a industrial scale electricity storage facility caught fire. So what this is doing, this is requiring that there be for any, again, this is actually in the CPCN statute. Commission can't authorize and a person can't undertake construction of a solar energy generating station that uses a battery-based electric storage device, unless the battery-based energy storage device will be and is designed to be protected by an automatic fire suppression system. And then it says the automatic fire suppression system required for a proposed solar energy generating station that uses a battery-based energy storage device shall be subject to approval by the state fire marshal. We don't have any testimony from the fire marshal. I am aware that a similar bill dealing with fire suppression equipment that was an ENT and we were secondary on was withdrawn by Delegate Christ. I haven't heard anything from Delegate Jacobs on this.
I thought, but hey, Bob, real quick, I thought myself and Delegate Adams sat in on that briefing, and I thought that was also Delegate Jacobs. So can we just confirm that the right bill was withdrawn?
Let me double check that. I'm
pretty certain that the bill that we're talking about that Christ had was a similar bill that was a perhaps a delegation bill for a single county, and that what you're reviewing here is a statewide policy.
Let me just take a look at that because I don't want to misspeak, but I remember seeing a withdrawal letter.
Okay. Well, while we're doing that, and you're pulling it up, we'll just go right down the line. Delegate Fraser Hidalgo.
Yeah, let me defer. I'd like to hear what happened with the original.
Okay, if I may, House 1046 was one of 4 bills that we shared with ENT yesterday. Hearing was canceled. That is a bill that would have required the state fire marshal to administer and enforce the NFPA standard for installation of stationary energy storage systems. It was a statewide bill introduced by Delegates Christ and Celebrity.
So it was withdrawn?
That was withdrawn apparently based on some concerns from the state fire marshal. The state fire marshal didn't come in on this bill, so I don't mean to confuse things, but it's somewhat confusing.
Hey, Bob, is there any data on how many fires in Maryland have taken place on solar?
There was no testimony on that. So,
okay, all right. Sorry, Delegate Fraser Hidalgo, did you have anything else? Sorry.
No, I guess my follow-up would be, and I don't know the answer to this, is how do we deal with that when it comes to other fossil fuel type power plants? Do they all have fire suppression systems? I don't know the answer to it, but it seems to me like that would be a.
I expect that gets into the CPCN if there's a condition. The only testimony we had in the bill, other than Delegate Jacobs, we had Kaylee Leager from the Caroline County Commissioner's Office, which was FWA. And they didn't really say what they wanted to remove subsection 3.
If Calvert Cliffs doesn't have a fire suppression system, I'm moving.
I expect they do. And then Mako was FWA, and that was to they were simply trying to respond to different scale sizes of batteries. That's all. They wanted to cover all utility scale batteries, not just solar.
Okay.
So,
Delegate Adams.
Right. So the bill hearing, there was testimony as to when these fires happen, and we're not talking about like batteries in a car, but these are larger facilities.
Huge. Yeah.
That once a fire begins, there's not the experience nor the training that relates to, number one, how do you put the fire out? But number two, if you can't put the fire out, what are the safety training mechanisms that help firefighters resolve this? So the bill, I believe, is a grant program, Bob, if I'm not badly mistaken, that helps fund projects where fire departments would get training on what happens when you have a fire, and then secondly, how to contain the fire. And there was some decent discussion amongst the ENT committee members about what exactly this bill is doing, and then frankly, how do we get that information to the firefighters free of a bill like this? It is coming from Caroline County, so the Delegate Jacobs is from that county. And it's based and couched not in opposition to solar projects existing, but rather as these are being built and the larger that they are, making sure that the volunteer, and just be candid with you, our
Mhm.
volunteer fire companies are able to safely resolve these sort of things. So this isn't a hit on or trying to
No,
challenge the nature of solar projects. It's rather to make sure our volunteers can do their job safely. And I would hope that of all the no's that I've had today on the schedule, this is one I would love to support and see come through.
the one, Delegate Adams, if I might, this bill was purely in ECM. I think the
Yeah.
bills you're referring to from yesterday were the ones that were joined in ENT, and I have no direct
Yeah.
personal
Delegate
knowledge
Adams, I
of
think you're
that program.
confusing the two bills. He has two bills that are somewhat similar. That bill yesterday had to do with the huge, large battery storage spaces. For whatever reason, he titled it solar, and that's what Chair Barve was trying to say is don't confuse that with this, which is basically a solar field that would require then a fire suppression system on the solar field.
Well,
So-
on the battery that's used to store
Or
the
the
electricity from the
yes,
solar
correct.
field.
Sorry.
All right,
So
sorry.
similar.
All right, sorry. Well, then what I'm suggesting is not the same on this bill, and I'll shut up and listen in. Sounds like a bill I'd support nevertheless, but I understand why it's a completely different subject.
Gotcha. Delegate Charkoudian.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I find myself confused. I'm not sure what bill we're talking about, but let me ask the first question. Because I think I understand what this bill does, and it doesn't have any training involved. This bill is about automatic fire sprinklers.
Yeah.
Okay, so does this bill have amendments? The agenda says amendments, but I don't seem to have them, and I apologize if they've been misplaced on my end.
Let me just see. The amendment actually strikes one portion of the bill, which is simply there was something in the bill as drafted that says this subsection, meaning this new requirement for the commission when it issues a CPCN to make sure that they use a battery base, they have fire suppression that's subject to approval by the state fire marshal. It says this subsection doesn't apply to a solar energy generating station with a nameplate capacity of less than 2 megawatts. Of course, probably that might have something to do with the fact that solar facilities under 2 megawatts don't go through this section anyway.
Okay, so
They don't get a CPCN. They get the interconnection agreement with the locality.
and I guess I sort of have two related questions. Is there someone from PSC here? I'm just scared. Yes, I see.
I see Lisa
Go ahead,
Smith
Lisa Smith. Go ahead.
So my question.
and Brett Sparrow is also
Great.
here.
Thank you. So let me ask my question. It's could we can you talk about what the current fire safety requirements are that are part of the regs already? And let me just sorry, I have a second question, but let me start there. If you could talk about how fire safety is addressed in the development of these projects, whether through CPCN or through other regs that on these projects.
Delegate Charkoudian, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. This is Lisa Smith, PSC, and we may have to get back to you with more information. My understanding, because there's no CPCN process as part of the storage pilot, I don't believe it's part of the process. But this may be something that's handled through the fire marshal or the localities. It's just not something on our end that the PSC is directly involved in. It's sort of outside of our purview.
But I think the amendment was to make it on projects that are 2 megawatts or larger, so it would be the CPCN process.
It strikes the amendment strikes the limitation against it applying to CPCN again projects that are below 2 megawatts.
My apologies. Is this on is the question, delegate, for storage? My apologies. I'm in transit.
That's okay, Lisa. I'm a little confused myself because I'm not sure what the amendments actually are. So that's where I'm having trouble tracking I'm sorry, Bob,
It's a one-line amendment, and what it says is if you have the text of the bill on page 3, strike in their entirety lines 13 through 15 inclusive. So it takes out paragraph 3 of this new subsection H in the CPCN statute.
So it's not in CPCN anymore?
It says the bill as drafted
Gotcha. It puts, okay, it,
says that the fire suppression requirement wouldn't apply to a nameplate capacity of less than 2 megawatts.
and now it would with the amendment.
Well, it would have to be something that would go through the CPCN process in the
Correct.
first place. If it's below 2 megawatts, it's not normally going through CPCN anyway.
Okay, so my second question, I think, Lisa, you were saying that the only storage right now is the storage pilot. There's not utility scale storage in Maryland at this time. Is that right? So you haven't had storage go through the CPCN process?
We have utility scale storage as part of the storage pilot. My apologies if the question was about solar. I don't know that we were prepared to discuss this bill. I'm sorry if you need more information on the CPCN process, but no, the utility scale solar storage in the storage pilot does not go through the CPCN process, correct?
Here's my concern about the bill. I'm generally supportive of, I actually have a separate bill that's related to fire sprinklers. But what I will say about the bill that I have somewhere else related to fire sprinklers in high-rise buildings is it took a good bit of time, and I understood what is there and isn't there. And I talked extensively to the fire marshal, and it's entirely possible that this bill has been developed with extensive conversation with the fire marshal and with an understanding of what is and isn't in place. But it's hard for me to decide if this is best without hearing from the fire marshal and without understanding what safety precautions are in place. So I don't know if we can hold it because I'm open to it, but I just don't know if it's
All right, let me go to Delegate Pippi. And then.
Sure, I agree with Delegate Shirky. Why don't we hold the bill?
All right, let's hold the bill. We're holding the bill.
We're holding the bill. Good.
All right. That concludes the Public Utilities Subcommittee. I appreciate everybody's time. I'll see you on the floor tomorrow.